When the United States spends more money than it brings in from taxes and other sources of revenue, the country's debt level increases. Individuals frequently worry about how the national debt impacts their lives and finances, despite the fact that the public debt is the product of tax and spending policies that are generally supported by the public. With a debt-to-GDP ratio of 121.62% as of the fourth quarter of 2023, the United States government's debt was $34.6 trillion as of June 3, 2024. This is an increase both in nominal terms and in relation to the gross domestic product of the United States. Not only does the issue attract the attention of economists and players in the financial market, but it also attracts the attention of people who are critical of the policies of the government. Compare and contrast the national debt with the budget deficit. Whenever the federal government's spending exceeds the amount of money collected from taxes and other sources of revenue, a budget deficit is created. In order to compensate for the shortfall, the United States Treasury Company sells treasury bills, notes, and bonds. When the annual budget deficits of the federal government are subtracted from the surpluses, the result is the total amount of the national debt. The history of the United States debt. As a general rule, the ratio of debt to gross domestic product tends to increase during recessions and in the aftermath of them. In a recession, gross domestic product decreases as government tax receipts decrease and spending on safety nets increases. Inflating the debt-to-GDP ratio is the result of a combination of increasing budget deficits and lower GDP. Deep recessions, such as those that occurred in the 1980s and in 2008 and 2009, have the potential to have consequences on the national debt that are particularly pronounced and long-lasting. What your debt can do to you. The national debt, which is currently at $34 trillion and is expected to continue to rise, poses a threat to the economic future of the United States. The following is a list of the reasons why the national debt is essential. Deficits in the trillion-dollar range are increasingly the norm. According to projections made by the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, the United States government would incur deficits totaling trillions of dollars over the course of the next 10 years, which will result in a cumulative deficit of $20 trillion between the years 2025 and 2034. There is a rapid increase in the cost of interest. In 2023, interest costs amounted to $659 billion, and it is anticipated that they will increase to $1.6 trillion by the year 2034. With regard to the costs of net interest, the United States of America spent more money in 2023 than it did on Medicaid and the Income Security Program combined. Essential investments in our future are currently in jeopardy. It is possible that higher interest rates will discourage vital public investments that have the potential to stimulate economic growth. High priority areas include education, research and development, and infrastructure. It will be more difficult for a nation to invest in its own future if it is burdened with debt. Growing debt means that there are less prospects for economic growth for Americans. A growing debt burden discourages company investment and inhibits the expansion of the economy. Furthermore, it raises the anticipation of rising rates of inflation and contributes to the decline of confidence in the United States dollar. It would be irresponsible of the federal government to let budget deficits to have a negative impact on the economy and families all around the country. Less options available to respond to emergencies. Because of the current trajectory of the United States economy, the country is at a greater danger of experiencing a fiscal crisis. Furthermore, the high levels of debt may leave policymakers with significantly less flexibility to deal with unforeseen events. If the nation experiences another significant recession, such to the one that occurred between 2007 and 2009, it will be more challenging to recover. Preserving the vital safety net that is in place. A fiscal path that is not sustainable poses a threat to the safety net as well as the most vulnerable participants in American society. In the event that the government does not possess enough amount of money, vital programs such as Medicaid and Social Security may be put in peril. Growth in the economy is a direct result of a strong fiscal basis. In order to lay the groundwork for a prosperous and expanding economy, a strong fiscal outlook is essential. Putting the country on a road that is financially sustainable brings about a favorable atmosphere that is conducive to growth, opportunity, and prosperity. Increased access to finance, increased resources for private and public investments, improved consumer and corporate confidence, and a more robust safety net are all outcomes that will result from the United States having a solid fiscal foundation. Managing the national debt is a priority for Americans of both political parties. With regard to the national debt, 3 out of every 4 people are in agreement that it ought to be among the top 3 priorities for politicians. Several options are available. The good news is that there is a wide variety of options available to choose from the answers. For the purpose of developing long-term financial plans, the Peterson Foundation's Solutions Initiative brought together policy organizations that represented a wide range of political perspectives. There are comprehensive plans that make it feasible to place the nation on a strong and sustainable budgetary foundation. These plans include reforming the budget, increasing spending on national defense, and changing our tax system. It will be simpler to proceed if we take action sooner. Starting as soon as possible makes perfect sense. The Congressional Budget Office, CBO, asserts that in order to accomplish long-term goals, it would be necessary to make slight adjustments to policy in order to address the issue of high and rising debt sooner rather than later. Early reduction of deficits results in a lesser accumulated debt, which in turn reduces the danger to long-term economic growth and stability. This is one of the benefits of early deficit reduction. As is the case with any other type of debt issue, the sooner you begin to handle it, the simpler it will be to resolve. When it comes to ensuring the economic future of the United States, addressing the national debt is a vital component. The leaders of the United States should use the opportunity to pursue pragmatic changes that will put the long-term fiscal outlook of the United States on a path that is sustainable, and these critical fiscal and economic challenges should be at the center of the policy discourse in Washington. In order to communicate anxiety about the magnitude of the government's debt, it is frequently compared to personal debt. The United States government is able to pay its bills in its own currency, but a family cannot do the same. It's possible that the way in which the money that was borrowed is used is more important than the total amount of debt or the percentage of debt to a country's GDP. The paradox of thrift illustrates how the decisions that individuals make to save more money might turn out to have the opposite impact when taken as a whole. There is no need to resort to a paradox in order to explain why governments that implement fiscal austerity policies frequently bring about more severe economic downturns, resulting in more big deficits and ultimately more debt. The burden of debt and the price of servicing debt forces policymakers to make difficult decisions. It's possible that the way in which the money that was borrowed is used is more important than the total amount of debt or the percentage of debt to a country's GDP. While the United States of America supported spending on pandemic relief during the COVID-19 crisis, they were opposed to spending cuts for the government programs that were the most expensive. While the majority of people believe that they pay an excessive amount of federal income tax, they are increasingly in favor of tax increases for corporations and the wealthy. Borrowing money from the government and investing it in order to boost the productive capacity of the economy can result in returns that are significantly higher than the expenses of borrowing money, or they could not. Which components are included in the national debt? What the federal government owes to its creditors, who include the general public as well as numerous government agencies, is referred to as the national debt. A variety of instruments including treasury bills, notes, bonds, treasury inflation-protected instruments, floating rate notes, FRNs, government account series, and others are used to denominate the debt. Subscribe to our channel for more informative videos like this. Thanks for watching.